Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Now, in this video, we're going to cover the next 15 days in quite a bit of detail here in a few moments, but at the end, I'm going to talk about the new long-range updates we got last week. We're going to get some even newer data that just came out from the National Multi-Model Ensemble, giving us another perspective on this upcoming winter pattern and what's going on with La Nina. So we're going to get there in a second. The map you've been looking at, though, shows you the month-to-date precipitation by ranks, and we can see how very wet things have been over toward the Appalachian Mountains here. We have a climate reporting district on this side of the Tennessee-North Carolina border that's having the wettest start to the month of October on record, and here this would be the third wettest. And so we've really seen quite a bit of heavy precipitation as of late in pockets throughout parts of North Carolina. Now from there, what I'm going to do is let's just look back over the weekend, just kind of see what our total precip looked like, because interior portions right in through here, let's kind of zoom in. We did get some heavier rain that tucked its way in here just around and then to the east of Raleigh, where we were still seeing some of these storms putting down rainfall rates that exceeded 3 to 4 inches in total. And also we watched that tropical system try to take shape here that did bring some showers along the coastal region. But I'll tell you, the tropics have kind of all but shut down at this point, not for the season, but for the near term, as the synoptic scale winds across much of North America are just too strong and in the wrong direction for any would-be tropical development to really impact the East Coast at this point. So even though the National Hurricane Center's got two regions, here's one they've got a 20% chance of developing, and here is another. In the event that these do develop, their trajectories are going to be staying out to open ocean at this point. But the European model, several other models kind of back off in their development pretty quickly here. So I'm not too concerned about the tropics in the near term. So what do we end up getting out of this pattern that's coming up? Well, it's kind of, I think, best shown in this graphic. Next 10 days, precipitation, a chance of getting more than an inch of rainfall. That's what we're looking here, the probability of more than an inch of rainfall. And as you can see, our chances here in the Carolinas to the Mid-Atlantic are in the 0 to 10% chance, and I think it's even less than that, given that the pattern is going to really produce a lot of subsidence over the Carolinas. All the action is going to be in parts of the plains and Midwest at the beginning of this week, and then by midweek, a monstrous storm system emerges here in the midsection of the country, and it's going to put snow back in Wyoming. And then you're going to see this pattern set itself up where we get a pretty deep trough that is off the west coast, and then a big ridge in the midsection of the country, and another trough that develops over the east. But you're going to be on the western side of the trough, and I'll explain what that means in just a few seconds here. So that's what I got through the next 10 days. We're going to get a chance to really dry down through the middle part of October. Now, as I said, with all the action happening in the west, take a look at this. Right now, the National Weather Service has identified over 28 separate hazards, and as you can see, almost all of them are confined to the Rocky Mountains and west, including winter storm warnings, high wind warnings, all sorts of just chaotic weather here. And really, it's only our coastal regions here that do have a couple of advisories out. We're not going to see much in the way of what I would call interesting weather in North Carolina for a while. And here's the reason why. We're going to take a look here at jet stream level winds, but we're going to look at it in terms of troughs and ridges, okay? And what I want you to notice as we go through this is that you're going to see the first few systems really turn hard to the north. And here they go. Ready? The first trough comes right over my home state of Illinois, right there. This is this evening. And then the much deeper trough, which emerges in the plains. Let's see it Tuesday into Wednesday. It too, look at that. If I just rock back and forth, it just goes from, Colorado here straight to the Dakotas and then eventually into the Canadian prairie. So that means through much of this week, we've got ridging in the jet stream here. That's the subsidence I was referring to. That means the atmosphere is not going to be producing a lot of lift, and therefore we're going to be drier, and our temperatures are going to be warm. Now, as we go through Thursday into Friday, into Saturday and Sunday, we've finally seen the models take a trough across the United States. Now, this will bring in some cooler weather, but this trough is not connected to deep cold in Canada. In fact, look right here. There's still a large ridge that builds up between the Hudson Bay and Greenland that is still quite a persistent feature in the flow of the jet stream here over the last few weeks. So that trough does come through Saturday into Sunday, and that's going to be our next chance at bringing some rainfall, because there will be a front that comes through this, knocking our temperatures down a little bit and bringing in some rainfall. But take a look. By next Monday into Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. This is the pattern I want you to see. We're out here day 11, so this is the 21st, okay? The flow dips into a deep trough in the west, ridge coming up into the Canadian Prairie, and then a trough that kind of runs through the northeast. Now, as you probably heard me show lots of times, when we look at this trough ridge pattern, just remember, if you're downstream, half a wavelength away from the trough axis here, well, really, that's a quarter wavelength away. That's where the unsettled weather is. So here's the trough. All the unsettled weather would be here with this one. If you come over the ridge, which we draw with a kind of a zigzag line here, you get upper level convergence in the flow. And convergence aloft produces sinking motion in the atmosphere, and that just clears things out. And so being on the western side of a trough generally means subsidence, high pressure, clear conditions. And we're going to see that taking shape here as we not only get out to the 21st, 22nd, but on out there through the third week of the month. See that? So what does all this mean? Well, let's go look at some high-res model data first. Okay, we got a cloudy day today, and you're going to see as I get through Monday afternoon and evening, there's a weak low that's just sitting off the coast, and it's going to be bringing the clouds into this area. But all the action came from that low that produced all the severe weather over Oklahoma and Texas on Sunday night, and now rips through the midsection of the country here on its way through the Great Lakes. But we're not going to get much, well, nothing out of this one. So that system fades, and as you see, I just kept playing here out to Wednesday. The next big low emerges here. There's its front. But we've got high pressure sitting over the top of us. And as a result of that, we're going to go through the front half of this week, in fact, most of this week, with a very, very, almost no chance of bringing in some precipitation. When might that change? Well, let's go over to the European model and see it. So there goes system number one, talked about that one. Then the big system that emerges in the plains, here it is by Wednesday. And then as we go forward, well, high pressure sitting over us through Thursday, into Friday, into Saturday, and then as you can tell, by Saturday night, as that low sits here, and another weak low begins to take shape in the northeast, there's a front kind of sitting on our doorstep here, and it comes through the Appalachian Mountains. As of right now, the forecast says by Saturday afternoon and evening, and then it just moves through pretty quickly, Saturday night and Sunday morning. In fact, by 7 a.m. Sunday morning, it's already cleared. And then behind it, we have the upper level convergence. So what happens? Big area of high pressure builds back in. So if I add up all that rainfall, zooming in here on North Carolina, let's just do this. Nothing through Tuesday, really, into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then there it is, Saturday night. See it coming into the Appalachian Mountains there? Through Sunday morning, and that sweeps through. So the European model at this point, all the way out to next Tuesday, the 19th, we are only going to be seeing our better chances of maybe a half inch or more here along the Appalachian Mountains, and we're pretty dry throughout much of the rest of North Carolina. Very little precip, if any, coming in until this upcoming weekend. Now, you've already seen what the flow in week 2 looks like, but I'll go back to it here and just use a different model. So this is day 10. See that ridge right there? And there's the trough. Okay. Model continues that. Now, all this gives us here is a little bit of a cooler pattern as we work our way toward the end of the month. All the heat's coming in the midsection of the country. So when you look out here first at precipitation, you see that through week 2, okay, that's out to Monday, October 25th, we favor drier than normal conditions. Not dry, but drier than normal. All the actions on the west coast, possibly here coming into the plains as well with normal precipitation. So that's 15 days on precip. Let's flip over to temperature, and then we'll get to that long-range forecast. So as I said, you watch this temperature pattern. That trough coming into the west, that's where things are cold. Here's today's highs. Tomorrow on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So look, we're going to be spending much of this week 5-8 degrees warmer than average because the ridge is in place and it's locking us into some sunshine. By Friday, still warm. Saturday, there's the front on the doorstep, right? And then it comes through on Sunday. So now we drop, from our midweek highs, we go back down to temperatures, around 70 for a high on Sunday. Beyond that, this is now the day 5 through 10 time period. So this is where the ridge is starting to rebuild here in the midsection of the country, and that trough is in place. So we're going to go after that frontal boundary comes through this weekend, this upcoming weekend. We have some cooler weather that's going to stick around, and it's there. But when I say cooler, it's not like we're going to go just transition into full-blown fall cold weather. No, we're 2, 3, 4 degrees cooler than average compared, to the 1990 to 2020 normals. And look at that ridge rebuilding. trough. Big ridge here, downstream trough, convergence drier. That's the main story. Now the models are taking this story, all of the long-range models, and they're just kicking the can down the road. You've heard me use that phrase before. We're just letting it persist. This has been a struggle of mine. I have thought that I have seen things that would make it shift, but I just don't. Well, let me take that back. The things I saw did not have the control on the pattern I thought they would. Like the MJO finally going into the West Pacific. It got there and then collapsed. So when you look out here, this is now October 22nd to November 22nd, that 30-day time period. Do you see how it's still cool in the west? Broad scale warmth across the eastern 2/3 of North America. We're looking at near normal, maybe a slight warm bias overall. Now we know that going from, this time period, end of October through November 22nd, we typically get our first frost in certain areas. But what this says is we're going to favor more days near normal or warmer than normal than we are going to favor those colder days. This is just not going over to a pattern where deep troughs occupy the eastern part of the United States. So what we end up getting out of that in terms of precip, this is how things look. Very weak signals, except for what we get here in the Northwest and the upper Midwest. We just don't see major precipitation signals for North Carolina that would really steer us one way or the other. Now from there, this is what I wanted to get to, the long range stuff, because I got brand new data that I want to share with you. So that almost gets us through November, right? Throughout November, I expect you to see more blue color emerging here. Our La Nina continues to develop. The Southern Oscillation Index is very positive. And before, I had thought that this La Nina would come in at about half strength of last year's La Nina. I think I underestimated what it's going to do. I think it's going to come in at about the same strength here. And notice how far to the south that cold water extends. And then it also pushes from Hawaii all the way up to California and deep region of cold water here in the North Pacific. Now, we did not look like this a year ago in terms of our La Nina. This one has got a greater extent across the western part of the United States. But here's the things I want to show you. The latest updates from the European model. You see they take the La Nina now down here closer to a -1 degrees Celsius anomaly across the Pacific, across Nino region 3.4. And just a reminder, that is this region right here in the Central Pacific. All right, that's the one we're going to watch most carefully. So it's going to bring it down there November, December, January. By the turn of the new year, we expect this to start to build back toward neutral, which would be in this wide area here between the red and the blue. And then notice some of the models by next spring and early summer are trying to return us back to El Nino. We're going to have to talk about that over the coming weeks and months. Now, with this being the most dominant factor in the long-range forecast, and I've been talking about it for a while here, let's get you the latest updates. First, this is the European. You're looking at the October updated forecast for the time period of December, January, February. And what it did was it went milder. Now, I'm going to be very clear about this. This is a 3-month average. You will have significant shots of cold air. That happens in the winter. But what this is saying is that if La Nina dominates the pattern, the cold air tends to stay north and west. We tend to favor more mild days than we do the cold days. And on the precipitation side of things, just take a look at it here real quick. We also tend to keep a very active Ohio River Valley storm track. There it goes. And so you look at it and you're going, wow, it really keeps us on the drier side of things. But I want you to be careful with this. If we see a lot of lows coming through the Ohio River Valley, or we see a lot of Colorado lows going from Denver to Chicago, these systems drag their fronts through the Carolinas. So don't look at this and immediately assume we're going to go into drought development this winter. That's not the case. There are places I'm worried about that, specifically this part of Texas and in California. But at this stage, I'm not seeing that. So just coming back here really quickly here to that seasonal temperature anomaly graph, I want to show you something. This is largely driven by this. What we're going to go look at, here we go, there we go, is we're going to look at the correlation between that Nino region 3.4 I told you about and the December, January, February precipitation pattern. Now remember, this is a correlation with ocean temperatures, which means if the ocean were warm, It's typically cooler than normal across the south into the Carolinas and warmer than normal across the north, but we don't have that. We have a La Nina, so you actually have to reverse the color bar in your head. This tends to favor warmer conditions, okay, across the south into the mid-Atlantic, and colder conditions here, so reverse the color bar. And on the precipitation side of things, let's just flip this over to precipitation, get another look at this, all right? So if we got that, let's create this plot, and there you go. Drier, drier, see that? That's why the long-range forecasts keep looking at that same pattern. And the newest data are here from the NMME, the National Multi-Model Ensemble. Look, they have the same wetter than average pattern here for those two active storm tracks. Drier in California, Texas, and along the coast. But I'll tell you something, we're going to watch this very carefully. I do not expect drought development this winter. I just think we're going to have an active pattern getting into the Northeast, and that tends to bring us better than normal precipitation throughout our winter. Okay? So that's the newest data that I got to share with you here in the long range. So we need to take this and start preparing for this going forward. How about one last thing here to finish up? South America. So I'm going to take you over to my website here, pull up some of the latest data. Whoops, let's try that again. This is really zoomed in there. There we go. Let's pull in here the latest data for South America. Now, you know that their planting progress is really picking up, and between now and mid to late November, they're going to plant 90% of their soybeans. They need rain, and the models are just giving it very generously. So through the next 10 days, we're going to have several locations in here picking up, 100 plus millimeters of rainfall. For reference, that's 4 inches. So South America's planting season is going to move pretty quickly. But the last thing I want to bring up to you here is, given that, let's go back to the seasonal forecast. Let's flip it back over to precipitation and now look at South America. And our concern moving forward, because of La Nina, is you generally get subsidence in the atmosphere. Remember I was talking about that at the beginning, over this area, which tends to produce drier conditions in Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay. That's these two states. There's Paraguay and Uruguay, those countries, excuse me, and then southern Brazil. Which means as we move through this upcoming growing season in South America, the risk for drought south is higher. Okay? All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Appreciate your attention this morning, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Thanks.